Thank you very much, Karen, and good morning. I hope you all had a pleasant evening last night and discovered Dundee, the city of discovery. I think this is a very interesting city in many ways. I think in many ways it encapsulates a lot of what Scotland can be. There's a bit of a can-do attitude in Dundee, creative thought, initiative, industries, and I think it's very appropriate that you've chosen Dundee to have this symposium. So thank you, Karen, for the kind invitation to speak at this important event. It's the first skills symposium organised by ANDS in partnership with the Improvement Service and the Scottish Government Centre for Regeneration and Architecture and Place Division. And I'm delighted to see such a good attendance here today. Yesterday evening I discussed with Karen and Jim MacDonald a number of issues, but it was clear that there was a real appetite at this symposium for exchanging views, sharing experiences, and most importantly learning from each other. And I think, as Karen said, I think the responsibility you have as design shapers for the future is a huge responsibility. The legacy that you will leave is really important about who Scotland is, who we can be, and to release the potential of our people. So I think don't rest easy. You have heavy burdens and responsibilities, but I'm sure you'll live up to that. And I strongly believe that the process of creating a built environment of quality in Scotland will be better served by working in partnership and by developing skills and expertise. And this event provides an excellent opportunity not only to network, but also to get hands-on learning experience and to draw inspiration from speakers of international renown such as Down, the master planner behind the very successful redevelopment of the waterfront area in Malmö. And what Karen perhaps didn't say is that my responsibilities, I'm Minister for Culture, but I'm also Minister for External Affairs. And so that means as part of my promotion of Scotland, I'm very keen that our design expertise, our architectural renown, is something that we actually make sure more people know about, certainly at home, but also internationally. And I see that as part of my responsibility. And what I'd like to do in order to set the context for today's programme is to begin by setting out some of the relevant issues from the Scottish Government's perspective. As many of you will be aware, the Government has 5 clear strategic objectives which underpin our overarching aim of sustainable economic growth. The objectives of making Scotland greener, healthier, smarter, wealthier and fairer, and safer and stronger all have strong links to the quality of our built environment. And I'm sure that everyone here wants to see better standards of development. We want to see better lives for the people of Scotland through better homes and through greater coherence in our towns and cities. And of course we all want to see the creation of successful and sustainable places that support new economic activity. And future thinking about what that new economic activity is, I think, is part of the challenge of thinkers like yourselves. However, the global economic downturn has hit the development sector particularly hard, and the challenge of securing a sustained economic recovery is one that the Scottish Government has been taking extremely seriously. And don't underestimate the role of the Scottish Government in helping public sector investment, particularly in capital projects over the last few years, when there were challenges, particularly in the private sector, bringing the first government within the United Kingdom to bring forward our capital expenditure to try and keep things moving. I believe as we return to growth, it's vitally important that the pace and consistency of planning reform contributes to our economic recovery. And the most important test of how well our planning system operates will be the quality of the outcomes that we secure from it. And it's really important that we keep our eye on the prize in that regard. And well-designed places not only provide a better quality of life, they attract and enable business and tourism, they provide rich environments that people wish to visit and in which they wish to live and work. And through this, they support communities that can naturally flourish socially and economically. Just last week, the Cabinet were in Bute in Rothesay in meeting as a Cabinet, but we had different visits, and I was part of my responsibility for the historic built environment, was discussing what Rothesay is like. Now, those of you who've been on the ferry, when you come into Rothesay, that's the first impression you get, is that square. And part of my discussions there were how do we improve the outlook just as you arrive in the ferry from Rothesay, with some good ideas coming to fruition there. But one of the key drivers shaping our thinking about the future of the built environment is, of course, the challenge of climate change. And the present global economic situation adds the pressure to do things differently, to do things better, more efficiently and with greater longevity. In Scotland, we have demonstrated our intent by signing up to some of the most ambitious emission reduction targets in the world. And it's imperative that we now support this commitment in all that we do. So the creation of successful, sustainable places is a vital part of the low-carbon economy. Walkable neighbourhoods, good public transport links, and energy-efficient buildings with an emphasis on long-term costs act to encourage sustainable behaviour. And I have remarked that some of the best schools that I've seen in my visits in recent years, actually I was asking the architects who were employed by the council, and what was interesting about that is some of the decisions they made were about the long-term costs of the building in terms of the servicing of the building, the materials, and I thought that was a very telling matter. There can be no doubt that a serious concern for good placemaking makes good social, environmental and economic sense. Earlier this year, this government launched our Designing Streets policy, which aims to put place and people above vehicle movement when considering the design and planning of new development. All too often in the past, the need to accommodate the car has compromised the creation of successful new walkable neighbourhoods. Street design guidance used to focus principally on vehicle movement and the rigid application of standards. As everyone here is well aware, the starting point for good placemaking is quite clearly not simply how we control the movement of motor traffic. And I'm very pleased to know that within the Symposiums programme, there is an emphasis on developing skills that can ensure its policies delivered effectively on the ground. Designing Streets is intended to sit alongside the earlier planning policy document Designing Places, which sets out government aspirations for design and the role of the planning system in delivering these. And we recognise, however, that there is need to move well beyond the words and to put the principles into practice. And launched in 2008, the Scottish Sustainable Communities Initiative has been a turning point in government's work to achieve a step change in the design quality and environmental standards of new mixed community developments. The initiative aims to raise awake standards and to develop skills in design, architecture and sustainable construction. And the SSCI selected 11 projects for government support that provide a basis for demonstration and for learning. The creation of a number of very low or zero carbon communities which also exhibit good placemaking qualities is intended to provide exemplars and to stimulate a rise in environmental design quality standards across Scotland. An extremely important aspect of the initiative was that we provided grant support for 3 design charrettes to involve communities, civic leaders and stakeholders in development strategies. These charrettes took place in Lochgelly, and I attended one of the public meetings there, Lazyfield in Dumfries and Grant Home on the edge of Aberdeen. Now, it's not often you get teenagers talking about charrettes, but only yesterday, believe it or not, I was discussing the Lochgelly charrette on the ramparts of Edinburgh Castle. Now, you might wonder why I was doing the Edinburgh Castle. I was actually with Cardinal Keith O'Brien and we were promoting the St Ninian's Day Parade, which was a parade through Edinburgh on the day of the papal visit. And the band, there was pipe bands, there were 1,000 pipers that day, by the way, on Princess Street. I was talking to 4 pipers from Lochgelly High School. And I was saying, oh, I was in Lochgelly, I was at the charrette. And I said, and they were sort of looking, and they were watching, and they said, oh yes, that was the one when they were talking about the town. And actually, how often would you have got teenagers talking about people coming and discussing their town with them? So I thought that was quite remarkable. So only yesterday, architecture and design has been discussed on the ramparts of Edinburgh Castle with teenagers from Lochgelly. So your reach is long and has impact. And that's very important because, again, it's that ownership and involvement. It's very much part and parcel of good design, I'm sure, as you all know. So the international German designer, Andrew Dwally, and his team from DPS, DBZ, worked with Scottish designers to successfully develop long-term vision-based strategies for each of the 3 projects over the course of the month. And what impressed me, particularly at the public meeting, was he could challenge and ask questions that actually, if somebody from the council, and this is where perhaps architects from the council have more challenges than others, somebody from the council might have difficulties, perhaps even architects is working with clients can have those challenges, certainly politicians. You know, if one of the councillors or the members of the Scottish Parliament had dared to suggest that the golf course might have to go, we'd have got done. But I actually think what's interesting is asking questions is one of the best skills. I don't know whether there's I'm not quite sure what's in the skills symposium, whether asking questions is part of your seminar, but I thought what was quite interesting that was the challenge of asking questions and how he managed to, in a very animated and obviously highly professional way, managed to engage at a level that perhaps we've never been able to engage, I think, in terms of discussions before, and I thought that it was very rewarding and very challenging. So the enthusiasm that we encountered from communities during charrettes was a very clear indicator of the will and the understanding that exists in Scotland for this type dynamic approach. The charrette process has proven itself to be an immensely powerful mechanism for harnessing and enriching interests, local views and aspirations, and for marrying these with specialist knowledge and design skills, and most importantly, making tough choices and having buy-in for tough choices. So I believe that a key challenge for the Scottish Government now is to help to mainstream this approach to community involvement and placemaking in shaping the future of Scotland's places. I should also mention the success of Scotland's Housing Expo in Inverness, which closed yesterday, which aimed to showcase the best of Scottish sustainable housing design. This was a significant initiative supported by the Scottish Government and involved the construction of over 50 homes designed by a variety of architects. Quite a remarkable achievement to be able to put on, present, build a housing expo in the teeth of a recession. Presenting, I thought, was a wonderful exhibition. And indeed, can I say, I visited and I was highly impressed. I think there's lots of lessons for everybody. The First Minister attended not once, he was so impressed he went again. And those of you who read the media yesterday would have seen his comments about that. Richard Blockhead, the Rural Affairs Minister, also went, and I think went back twice. And of course, Alec Neil, who's the Housing Minister, was there. So, as I say, in terms of the support politically that the Housing Expo's had, I think it's very strong. I think you should use that. But I thought what was very telling was perhaps we need more as a community, and that's all of you as well as government, to make sure that that kind of idea, that concept isn't just a one-off. And how can we take that forward in the future? And how can we make sure that the lessons of the Housing Expo weren't just for 1 month in summer in 2010, but can be something that we can grab with 2 hands. And that happened because of ambition, vision, and a bit of confidence, and a bit of can-do approach. So if we can do a Housing Expo in the teeth of the recession and showcase some of the best in terms of architecture and design of places, just think what we're capable of. But that, I think, is part of a collective responsibility, and I'm sure more of that will be discussed in the future. The event was highly successful. I noticed that they were worried that they wouldn't meet the 30,000 visitors mark, but they did, despite obviously some difficulties with the weather. And there were visitors from all over the UK and many international visitors, and it has achieved the aim of a greater public involvement in the debate on housing quality and sustainable design in Scotland. And the event has helped promote Scottish business development in the building and component manufacturing sectors, and we believe will have an impact on rebuilding confidence in the housing market in the Highlands and beyond. Improving skills and shaping the quality of Scotland's built environment is a major challenge, and so as we develop knowledge through experience, it is vital that we draw such knowledge together and share it, and it's vital that we learn lessons from the experience overseas. As I said earlier, I'm delighted to see ANDS, the Improvement Service, and the Scottish Government Centre for Regeneration and Architecture Place Division. I think we need to shorten that name, actually, it's far too long. We need them to work together to make sure, in organising this event, that we can build on that partnership approach. Partnerships between organisations and individuals play a critical role in taking forward our shared aims. And I'm also delighted to see the level of interest and commitment of those who have come here to take part in this event over these 2 days. The importance of harnessing skills, sharing knowledge and building capacity cannot be emphasised enough if we're to effect real change on the ground. And I have great faith that we can all work together to build a future Scotland of which we can be proud. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes of the symposium. I hope that everyone gets something from it. I hope you also contribute to the success of the symposium as well. I go back to my earlier remarks, not to put too heavy a responsibility on you, but I think the opportunities you have to shape Scotland is a wonderful opportunity. Yes, things are difficult. Sometimes when things are difficult, those people who have got creative minds, who are innovative, who have that approach that many people, obviously coming from design professions, have, you have an opportunity, I think, if you grab it, to help shape the future for Scotland in a way that will be lasting, sustainable, and will be an enjoyable environment for our generations and future generations to enjoy. Thank you very much.